Are you lost in the chaotic whirlwind of day-to-day busyness? Do you yearn for a deeper sense of meaning and purpose in your life? Welcome to Be You, Your Story, Your Purpose, the podcast dedicated to empowering women on their journey of self-discovery and finding their true purpose through their own story. I'm your host, Brenda Simmons. Welcome, my friends, to the podcast. I'm so glad that you can be here with me today. I want to start out today by sharing a story. When my oldest daughter was a newborn, she was very particular, and she was just born this way. And this is what I mean. Every time we fed her, either me nursing her or with a bottle, she demanded that we watch her and look at her in the eyes the entire time. Every single time we fed her. That's just how she was. And the funniest part was if she didn't get that, she would yell at us. Even as yeah, a few day old infant. Like, she wanted that full attention. And she would let us know if she thought we weren't giving it to her enough. Now, parents of older kids will know that these little personality traits will carry on. They don't really leave. So you can imagine she is the same way even now. And it's just one of her funny quirks. And it's interesting because even now, if she feels like we're in a conversation and I don't give her enough attention, like if I'm distracted with, either an email or she can tell even when I'm on the phone with her if I'm multitasking and doing something else, and she ends the conversation. That's just, she just doesn't like that, and she has been like that from day one. So I want to talk to you today about this, about weapons of mass distraction. We've heard about weapons of mass distraction before, but what are the things that distract us to the point where we're not paying attention to the task at hand, and we're not giving the attention needed to either the person or the activity or maybe homework or whatever it is that needs to be done in that moment? I first learned of this concept by the author Catherine Price in her book, The Power of Fun. And she even has another book that talks about breaking up with her phone. I haven't yet read it, but it's on my to-do list. And so I would encourage you to pick up what she's written, because she's done a lot of research and gathering data on the effects that having these distractions have on us. And so I want to go into a little bit about these. So what are weapons of mass distraction? Well, they are anything that takes our focus away from what we should be doing. It is not the friend that needs help. It is not the impromptu spending time with your family. It is not the emergencies that take you away from the task at hand. Those are exceptions. I am talking about the things that we substitute as an excuse for not focusing on what is most important, or the things that we just habitually have in place that we haven't, that take our focus away from what we need to be doing. So examples of this. And this is with the caveat. I'm just going to do several examples. You might have some that I don't list. I mean, it's really anything can be a distraction. But it's the ones that we use consistently to take us away from the task at hand. Those are the ones that we really want to pay attention to. Okay, so I think universally our phones are a huge, huge distractor. So because we've got social media, we've got videos we can watch on there, games we can play. So many things on our phones can distract us. So I'm just going to put that in a big umbrella. Now, some of these can be accessed on the phone, but just know that the phones in general are definitely a distractor. Video games can be a distractor. TV can be a distractor. How many times do you, okay, this is mostly for me. So many times I just need the noise in the background. And so I'll sit in front of a TV and I'll have something going. Usually it's something that I've already watched, so I don't really have to pay attention. But here's the thing. Even though I know what is happening on the TV, and so it doesn't require my full attention, the fact that I can go back and forth to what is going on the TV and what my task is at hand it really affects my ability to get that task done and to do a good job on it. And so, other distractions are maybe books, internet searching. So this is another big one that I've done. I'll be in the middle of a conversation and something will pique my interest in that conversation. I'll go, "Oh, I've got to look that up." Well, now all of a sudden the conversation has been disrupted because I feel this need to find out information, even though that information may not even really add to the conversation itself. Okay, another one is email. So if you're working on your computer and you've got the constant binging of the emails coming in, or feeling like you have to go back to them every time you see that number change. Notifications. Okay, this is a big one. This is something that it's one of my pet peeves. And so, like, if I'm in a conversation with somebody else, it drives me bonkers to have their phones going off, pinging all the time. And I first noticed this right when, many, many years ago, when Facebook was just getting really big. So this was maybe 2008, 2009, somewhere around in there. And I remember very distinctly, I'm in this group of friends, and I've got this one friend who's just constantly pinging, and so she's looking. And it was such a distractor, not just her looking, but having that noise ping all the time. It totally disrupted the flow of the conversation, and it made it really difficult to really be engaged in that conversation. So because of that, I always keep all of the notifications off on my phone unless I'm in a place where I absolutely have to have it and I'm not in a conversation with somebody. So notifications is on your phone especially is just it's a big, big, big distractor. Shopping. So now this one is kind of an interesting one, but I think especially the online shopping when you are distracted from doing what you need to be doing, thinking, oh, I need to go and get that. And rather than saying, okay, I've got this idea, I need to do that, I'll just write it down and take care of it later, right? So shopping can be a distractor. Food can be a distractor, especially for me, like 3 p.m. in the afternoon, like I want a snack. And so even if I'm doing something, it's really hard for me to not be distracted by that desire to go and munch on something. Radio and podcast. Now, obviously, I love podcasts and I'm a huge podcast listener. But if I am trying to get a task done, I cannot have words talking going on and I can't have music that have words because it will make my brain not be able to focus on what I'm doing. Interestingly, if I've got something like classical music, that helps me to focus because it doesn't have that word component to it. And so with the caveat, if it's like a soundtrack to a movie, to me that will be distracting because my brain now thinks about what's going on in the movie at the time that this music is playing. So pure classical music is really great for me. So I have to be really careful about that. Watching the news can be a huge distractor. I know a lot of people who just have that going on in the background and it's just there constantly. And so it becomes noise that disrupts your flow inside of your brain. You can have, okay, this is something silly, but I really wanted to include this just to let you know that really anything can be a distractor. So think of like a physical condition, like you've got a really bad bug bite and it just itches really bad, or you've got an itchy clothing tag and it bothers you. And so you just can't focus until that is gone. And then finally, internal thoughts can even be a big distractor. If you've got something really big on your mind and you're not able to really process anything else because it's just taking up all of your mental space, that can be another big distraction. Okay, so go through that list. You might have a bunch more that are bad for you. I mean, a lot of these are issues that I have and that I've had to mitigate against them. And you can have more than one weapon of mass distraction in your life. Obviously, I've just mentioned several here that I struggle with. And so it's really important to identify what those are for you. And why is it so important that we recognize what we're being distracted by? Well, it's really important because it affects us physically and mentally. It affects the things that we're doing. So think about this. Every time you are distracted by something and you know you've got a task that needs to get done, it actually causes a stress response inside of your body. You get increased stress, you get increased anxiety, and this increases the stress hormone cortisol. This then decreases our ability to put things to memory and then to later be able to recall them. Weapons of mass distraction decrease our ability to focus, obviously, and it literally shrinks our attention span. And this is a very physiological thing. It's not just a mental thing. And it has to do with the cognitive pathways that are inside of your brain. Those will weaken until they break. And the good news is it's not necessarily permanent. You can work to strengthen them and create more pathways. But just know that the more distracted you are, the more you disrupt the flow inside of your brain, the greater weakness you're going to have between those cognitive pathways. The addiction is very real. You can actually become addicted to these distractions. So think on those notifications and the constant looking at your phone. Scientists have proven that you get a dopamine hit similar to that what you receive when you satisfy an addiction. Then you get that process of you get desensitized, and so then you need to increase the amount of that hit in order to get that increased level of dopamine. The overall effect of weapons of mass distraction is that it threatens our ability to get into a state of flow because we've got all of these physiological things going on inside of us. So, what is flow? So, flow, you might have heard it as being in the zone. It's when your mind and your body are totally connected to the task at hand. And the thing is that being able, getting yourself into a state of flow, it takes time. Like you can't, it doesn't just happen automatically. You have to put yourself in that position and really focus on what you're doing, and then you will ease into it. But it is not something that comes easily, and it takes, and every time you get disrupted, that time starts over again. And so, what happens then is that the tasks that you're doing will take longer, and many times the work quality that you're doing, whether it's, and I'd say work, but it could be anything, it could be play quality, it could be conversation quality. Like whatever you're doing, that quality is going to be compromised. So, how do you lessen the use and the impact of our weapons of mass distraction? Well, I've mentioned before, it's really important to at least recognize what you have. So, you need to know at what times of day, even, do you have distractions that are more prominent at those times of day? So, like I mentioned earlier, that around 3 o'clock, I get the munchies and food becomes a huge distractor. I don't have a problem with food in the morning. It's not an issue. It is a bigger issue for me in the afternoon. So you want to set some boundaries. So, like, let's take my food example. And I can say, okay, at 3 o'clock, I'm going to get up, I will get one snack, and then I will be done. So that would be my boundary rather than going up multiple times to get a little tiny snack. So then you can, once you set your boundaries, then you can make a mitigation plan. So let's say you have a problem with your phone at night, right? So you can put your phone in another room. You can turn your phone to do not disturb. You can turn off your notifications. You can have focus apps. So Pomodoro, I've used this one before. It's actually pretty slick and I do like that. I don't use it all the time, but in a pinch, I know that if I really want to stay focused and I really got to get something done, then I will use that Pomodoro app. And what's cool about it is it will put your phone on do not disturb automatically. And so that you can totally focus and you can set the parameters of I want to focus for this much time and then I will give myself a break and then I will get back into it. So then you can spend or you can do a weapon of mass distraction fast. So whether it's your phone or whether it's, whatever, take your pick. You can take a fast from and just say, for this amount of time, I am not even going to touch that at all. So let's take the phone example again. So you can say from Friday night to Saturday night or Saturday night to Sunday night, I'm not going to pick up my phone at all. I honestly have not done this with my phone because I use it so much communicating with my family. And so I think if you were to do that, I would send a notice out and say, hey, I'm not going to you be using my phone for the next 24 hours. And so just keep that in mind if you're not able to reach me. So you might just want to let people, because they might think something's really wrong if you're not responding. So, but it's just experimenting with what works for you. And I mean, I've done things where it just didn't work at all for me. And so I'm like, okay, well, I'll try something else. But the beauty of being able to get into a state of flow for me is what motivates me to try to figure this out. I really love being able to just get so focused on my work that time just stands still and I have no recollection of, that time moving because I'm so focused and so intent on what I'm actually doing. And that is just a really fun place to be because for me it's super hyper creative and I feel like I just get these like heavenly downloads. And so it is a really fun place to be. But I can't get there if I'm distracted. It just doesn't happen. And so it's not a this and it's a this or, if that makes sense. So something to keep in mind is that which we focus on increases. And so if your focus is constantly on the distractions, you will literally become addicted to those distractions. You will compromise your mental and physical health as well as the task at hand that you're working on. If you are removing those distractions and you're focusing on what you're doing, your ability to do that thing increases. Also, our ability to focus for longer periods of time increases because you're creating all of these really amazing cognitive connections. So think about that as you're going throughout your day and as you are connecting with other people. Are you do you have your phone on the table? Is it facing up so every time something happens, you're looking at it? Do you have that put away and do you focus 100%? And I'm actually really grateful for my daughter who points it out to me and who will say, you're not paying attention to me. I basically, she says I deserve better than a half conversation. And she's totally right. People deserve our full attention. The task at hand deserves our full attention. And if we really, really want to achieve the goals that we have, it's so important to remove our own personal weapons of mass distraction. So I hope you got a little bit of insight on that. And I hope you're able to look at your own life and see what your weapons of mass distraction are and make up a plan for how you can decrease that or mitigate the effects that it has on you. So if you found this podcast to be helpful, please share it with somebody because you just never know if this is just what they needed. And I hope that you always remember that your purpose is in your story. Until next time, take care.
Celebrate your dreams, let them take flight, for you are a star, shining bright in every step you take. Let your light